Learn Spring Cloud is not a sentence that means anything, and that is the first thing to fix. Spring Cloud is not a framework. It is an umbrella over about 20 separate projects that share a release train and not much else. When somebody says our microservices use Spring Cloud, they have told you almost nothing. They might mean config, or discovery, or a gateway, or tracing, or all of it, or one thing badly. And that vagueness is expensive, because the way most teams adopt Spring Cloud is, they follow a tutorial that adds Eureka, plus config server, plus gateway, plus Feign, plus Hystrix, and now they run 5 infrastructure services to support 3 business services, every one of which they must patch, monitor, and be paged for. Meanwhile, half of that stack is solving problems their platform already solved. So this episode does 2 things. It tells you what each piece actually does, so you can hold the map in your head. And it tells you, honestly, which pieces you probably do not need, because the correct amount of Spring Cloud, for most teams in 2026, is much smaller than the tutorials suggest. 9 concepts. And I will name the pieces that are dead, because several are, and people are still teaching them. Let me lay it out, because the biggest problem with Spring Cloud is that nobody shows you the whole board. The pieces that matter, config, which centralizes configuration. Netflix Eureka, which is service discovery. And note that Eureka is now the only thing left in Spring Cloud Netflix. Gateway, the API gateway, which we covered in its own episode. OpenFeign, declarative HTTP clients. Circuit breaker, an abstraction over Resilience 4J. Stream, for message-driven microservices over Kafka or Rabbit. Bus, for broadcasting events across instances. Vault and Console, for secrets and discovery. And Contract, for consumer-driven contract testing. Now the graveyard, and this is the part that catches people. Zool, removed. Ribbon, removed, replaced by Spring Cloud Load Balancer. Hystrix, removed, replaced by Resilience 4J. Archaeus, gone. And Spring Cloud Sleuth, which is what everyone still names when you ask them about distributed tracing, has been replaced by Micrometer tracing. Sleuth as a project is done. 5 of the things you will find in the top Google results for Spring Cloud microservices do not exist anymore. That is the state of the ecosystem, and the churn is not an accident. It happened because Kubernetes ate half the problems these libraries were invented to solve. Let's get into it. First, centralized configuration, and its sharpest edge. The problem it solves is real. You have 12 services across 4 environments, and their configuration is baked into 48 jars. Change a timeout and you rebuild and redeploy. Config server pulls that out. Configuration lives in a Git repository, which gives you history, review and rollback for free, and that is genuinely the best part of the idea. The server exposes it over HTTP, and each service, at startup, asks the server for its config by application name and profile. Layering resolves in a defined order, an application.yml that applies to everything, then service-specific files, then profile-specific overrides. Now the sharp edges, and there are 3. First, the config server becomes a startup dependency for every service. If it is down when your pods are rolling, nothing starts, and you have converted a config store into a single point of failure for the entire deployment. Run it highly available or cache aggressively. Second, refresh. The actuator refresh endpoint rereads config and rebinds beans annotated refresh scope, but only those beans, so a value injected into an ordinary singleton at construction does not change, and people are constantly surprised by this. Third, and this is the honest one, on Kubernetes, config maps and secrets already do this, natively, with no extra service to run and no startup dependency to fail. If you are on Kubernetes, the strongest argument left for config server is git history and refresh without restart. That is a real argument. But it is a much smaller one than the tutorials imply. On to the second one. Eureka, and the question of whether you still need it. Instances come and go. Something has to answer where is order service right now. Eureka is a registry. Services register themselves on startup, heartbeat every 30 seconds, and fetch the registry so they can call each other by name instead of address. The design decision that defines Eureka, and the one interviewers probe, is that it chooses AP over CP. It is deliberately eventually consistent, and it will happily serve you a stale registry rather than refuse to answer. There is even a self-preservation mode. If too many heartbeats vanish at once, Eureka assumes the network is broken rather than the services, and stops evicting anybody. That is the right call for a discovery system. A stale address that might work beats no address at all, but you must understand the consequence. A dead instance can linger in the registry for a minute or more, and your clients will try to call it. Which means discovery does not remove the need for retries and circuit breakers. It creates it. And the honest question, again, on Kubernetes, a service object already gives you a stable DNS name, a virtual IP, and load balancing across healthy pods, with readiness probes doing the health checking. That is service discovery, built into the platform, and it is strongly consistent where Eureka is not. So if you are on Kubernetes, running Eureka is usually running a second, worse discovery system beside the one you already have. Eureka earns its place on VMs, on ECS without Service Connect, or in a hybrid state. Not on plain Kubernetes. Third, declarative HTTP clients, and the danger hiding in the convenience. You declare an interface, annotate it FAN client with a service name, put your Spring MVC annotations on the methods, and FAN generates the HTTP client. It resolves the name through discovery, load balances across the instances, and you call it like a local bean. It is genuinely pleasant, and that is exactly the problem. Because it looks like a local method call. It is not a local method call. It is a network hop that can be slow, can fail, can time out, and can return garbage, and the syntax gives you none of those cues. So people write code that calls 3 FAN clients in a row and never once thinks about latency budget because it reads like 3 getters. This is the fallacy of the transparent remote call, and it is old enough to have a name. We made this exact mistake with Corba and with EJB remoting, and FAN is a much nicer version of the same trap. So use it, but with your eyes open. Always set a connect and read timeout. The defaults are far too generous, and a FAN call with no timeout is a thread you will never get back. Always wrap it in a circuit breaker. And be aware of the loop. If service A calls B, and B calls C, and each has 3 retries, one slow C becomes a cascade. FAN makes the call easy to write, which means the reviewer must be the one who asks whether it should be made at all. If you find yourself writing a FAN client to fetch data you need on every request, you may have drawn your service boundary in the wrong place, and that is a design smell, not a library problem. Next one, Resilience 4J, and what a bulkhead actually is. Hystrix is dead. Spring Cloud Circuit Breaker is a thin abstraction, and Resilience 4J is what sits behind it. It gives you 5 patterns, and knowing all 5 separates you from someone who only knows the phrase circuit breaker. The circuit breaker itself, closed, open, half open, and it trips on a failure rate over a sliding window, not on a simple count, which matters because a fixed count is meaningless without a denominator. Retry, with backoff, and only for idempotent calls. Rate limiter, caps how often you call something. Time limiter caps how long you wait. And the bulkhead, which is the one people cannot explain in interviews, so learn it. A bulkhead limits the number of concurrent calls to a given dependency. The name is from shipbuilding. A ship is divided into sealed compartments so that a hole in one does not sink the whole vessel. Same idea. If the recommendations service is allowed at most 10 concurrent calls, then when it hangs, only 10 of your threads are stuck in it, the 11th caller fails fast instead of joining the queue. Without a bulkhead, a single slow dependency will consume every thread you have and take out endpoints that never even touch it. That is exactly the Zool failure from the gateway episode, one layer down. And the ordering matters. The standard composition is retry wrapping circuit breaker wrapping rate limiter wrapping time limiter wrapping bulkhead. Get it backwards and your breaker counts every retry as a separate failure, so it trips 3 times faster than you configured it to. Halfway through. Next, sleuth is dead. Say micrometer. In a monolith, a stack trace tells you what happened. Across 12 services, it tells you nothing. You get an error in service F and no idea which request caused it, or that it started as a checkout in service A. Distributed tracing fixes that. Every inbound request gets a trace ID. Every hop gets a span ID and a parent. The IDs propagate across the network in headers, so the whole call graph can be reassembled and you can see, on one flame chart, that 90% of your checkout latency is 1 and plus 1 query in the inventory service. Now, the naming, because this strips up everyone. Spring Cloud Sleuth was the Spring project that did this. It is done. It has been replaced by micrometer tracing, which is built on the OpenTelemetry standard, and if you say sleuth in an interview today you are dating yourself precisely. This is a genuinely good change. By the way, not churn for its own sake. OpenTelemetry is vendor neutral, so you instrument once and can send to Jaeger, or Zipkin, or Datadog, or Honeycomb, without changing your code. 2 practical things. 1. Sampling. You cannot afford to trace every request at volume, so use sample, but tail-based sampling, which decides after the request finishes, is far better than head-based, because it can keep all the slow and failed traces and throw away the boring ones. Head-based sampling throws away your outliers, which are the only traces you actually wanted. 2. Put the trace ID in your logs. A trace you cannot correlate with a log line is half a tool. And of the entire Spring Cloud stack, this is the piece I would argue you should adopt first, because when you have a production incident at 3 in the morning, tracing is the difference between 10 minutes and 4 hours. Number 6. The messaging pieces, one useful, one a trap. Spring Cloud Stream abstracts the broker. You write a JavaUtil function or consumer bean, and a binder connects it to Kafka or RabbitMQ. Your business code never imports the Kafka client. The argument for it is portability. Swap the binder, change broker, and I want to be straight with you, that argument is mostly theoretical. Almost nobody actually swaps brokers, and if you did, the semantics differ so much that your code would not survive the swap anyway. Kafka has partitions, offsets and ordered replayable logs. Rabbit has exchanges, queues and acts. Those are not the same model wearing different hats, and an abstraction that pretends they are will leak the moment you need anything real. The genuine benefits are narrower but they do exist. Consistent configuration, a clean dead letter setup, retry handled for you, and a functional programming model that is much nicer to test than raw consumers. Use it if you want those. Do not use it because you believe you will change broker. Spring Cloud Bus is a different animal, and I would push back on it. It uses your message broker to broadcast events to every instance of every service, and the canonical use is telling everyone to refresh their config at once. That means your config refresh mechanism now depends on your message broker being healthy. You have coupled a control plane concern to a data plane component, and when Rabbit is down you cannot push config, which is exactly when you probably want to. It was a clever solution to a problem that Kubernetes now solves by simply restarting the pods. 7. The uncomfortable overlap. Here is the thing nobody says in the tutorials. Spring Cloud was designed in 2015 for teams deploying JARs onto virtual machines where the platform gave you nothing. It solved discovery, config, load balancing and routing in the application because there was nowhere else to solve them. Then Kubernetes arrived and solved the same problems in the platform. Look at the overlap honestly. Discovery, Eureka versus a Kubernetes service with DNS. Config server versus config maps and secrets. Load balancing, Spring Cloud Load Balancer versus Kubeproxy. Routing, gateway versus an ingress controller. Health, Eureka heartbeats versus liveness and readiness probes. And if you have a service mesh, it also does retries, circuit breaking, MTLS and traffic splitting for every service in every language without a single line of Java. So if you run Spring Cloud's full stack on Kubernetes, you are running two discovery systems, two config systems and two load balancers, and they can disagree with each other. I have seen a service registered as healthy in Eureka while its readiness probe said it was not, and traffic went to it anyway, and it took a long time for anyone to work out why. The rule I would give you: prefer the platform for infrastructure concerns, and use Spring Cloud for the things that must live in the application, which are fewer than you think, and that is not a criticism of Spring Cloud. It is what success looks like. The problems it solved got absorbed into the layer below. Number 8. The short list. So here is what I would actually adopt, in order. First, micrometer tracing. Every distributed system needs it, no platform gives it to you for free, and it is the single highest value thing on this list, because at 3 in the morning it is the difference between a 10-minute incident and a 4-hour one. Adopt this before anything else. Second, Resilience 4J. Retries, timeouts, circuit breakers and bulkheads have to live in the caller, in the code, where the semantics are known. Even with a service mesh, a mesh does not know that this call is idempotent and that one charges a card. Then it depends. Gateway, only if your ingress cannot do what you need, and check first. OpenFANE, convenient, but a plain web client or the new Spring 6 declarative HTTP interface does most of it now without another dependency. Config server, strong if you want Git history and refresh without restart, weak if config maps already work for you. Stream, yes, if you want a nicer, more testable programming model over Kafka, no, if you are buying it for a broker portability you will never use. And the two I would push back on hardest, Eureka, if you are on Kubernetes, because it is a second, worst discovery system next to the one you already have. And Bus, because it couples config refresh to your message broker. The correct amount of Spring Cloud is smaller than the tutorials. Every one of these is a service you must run, patch, monitor and be paged for. The final one. What they are actually testing. When an interviewer asks about Spring Cloud, they are almost never testing whether you can recite annotations. They are testing whether you understand distributed systems, and Spring Cloud is just the vocabulary they happen to be using. So, if you are asked how services find each other, do not just say Eureka. Say Eureka is client-side discovery. It is AP so the registry can be stale, and therefore you still need retries, and on Kubernetes I would use a service instead, because the platform already does it and does it consistently. That answer demonstrates you understand the cap trade-off, not that you have read a tutorial. If asked how you handle a failing downstream, do not just say circuit breaker. Walk the ladder, timeout first, because without a timeout nothing else matters and the thread never comes back. Then retry, but only if idempotent. Then a circuit breaker on the failure rate. Then a bulkhead, so one slow dependency cannot eat every thread. Then a fallback, and be specific about what degraded actually means to the user. If asked about tracing, say micrometer tracing on OpenTelemetry, and if you say sleuth, they will know exactly how old your knowledge is. And the answer that will genuinely distinguish you, the one almost nobody gives, ask what the platform already provides. An engineer who says I would check whether the ingress and the mesh already solved this before adding another service to run is demonstrating judgment, and judgment is the thing they are actually short of. Anyone can add a dependency. Knowing which ones not to add is the senior skill. Let us bring it together. Spring Cloud is not one thing, it is an umbrella over 20 projects, and learn Spring Cloud is not a goal. Half of what you will find in search results is dead, Zool, Ribbon, Hystrix and Archaeus are removed, and Sleuth has become micrometer tracing. Config server puts your configuration in Git, good for history and refresh, but it becomes a startup dependency for everything, and config maps may already do the job. Eureka is AP, so the registry lies to you sometimes, which is why discovery creates the need for retries rather than removing it, and on Kubernetes a service already does this better. Feign makes a network call look like a method call, which is convenient and dangerous. Set timeouts, wrap it, and remember that a remote call is never transparent. Resilience 4J gives you 5 patterns, and the bulkhead is the one that will win you the interview. Concurrency limits, so one slow dependency cannot eat every thread you have. Tracing is the piece I would adopt first, because it is what saves you at 3 in the morning. And the honest throughline, Spring Cloud solved in the application what Kubernetes now solves in the platform, so run each concern in exactly one place. The senior skill is not adding dependencies. It is knowing which ones to leave out. Subscribe.